This is just a little information about how birth doulas have contributed to modern maternity care, and there is evidence out there. So there have been studies that do study the benefits of a doula in regards to birth, and a lot of these studies have found that when a person does tend to use a doula, they tend to have less likely need for pitocin. Pitocin is a drug that artificially starts your labor. So what we're finding is that people who have doulas tend to go into labor on their own rather than need Pitocin. And sometimes Pitocin is used actually to even augment a labor. And augmenting the labor means that you've had a labor, you've had contractions, but for some reason they've stopped. That tends sometimes not to happen if you have a doula. It's about a 28% less likely need for Pitocin. People who use doulas are usually less likely to have a cesarean birth. That is basically due to the fact that people who use doulas tend to have less interventions. And what we know about interventions is it does tend to increase your chances of having a cesarean birth. So the less interventions you tend to use, including pain meds, the less likely sometimes a cesarean birth is needed. And that's where that statistic comes from. You're usually less likely to use pain medication. Again, sometimes pain medication is used when you're not coping. We want you to cope through this process. We don't want you to suffer. And coping means that you're relaxed, that you're feeling peaceful, that you're feeling focused, and a doula can help you do that. We can help you suggest to deal with pain in natural ways so that it's least likely for you to want to have medical pain relief. That doesn't mean that you're not going to need it just because you have a doula. But the statistics do show that if you do have a doula, the chances of you needing pain medications does tend to go down by about 9%. You're more likely to rate their childbirth experiences positive. Just by using a doula, that people tend to look at the birth experience, even if it was an experience that didn't quite go the way that they planned, they still seem to look at it as a positive and an empowering experience. These statistics are all found on the DONA International website. DONA is an international organization that certifies and trains doulas. DONA stands for Doulas of North America. How do you find a doula? Well, I am going to be partial. I belong to a beautiful collective called Vita Doulas. There's 5 of us, and we have chosen to work with each other because it's really, really important that doulas have good backup just because of the unpredictability of what we do. So it's really, really important that we trust that if we cannot be at your birth, that we can send in another doula or a backup doula to help you with that birth. And I don't want to send somebody in for you where I'm going to be worried about the kind of care they're going to give you. So this is why we've chosen with Vita to work together. So there are 5 of us who are working at Vita Doulas, and you can find us at www.vitadoulas.ca. There's also the Doulas of Victoria website, which actually shows about 35 to 40 of working doulas in Victoria. And that can be found at www.doulasofvictoria.ca. It's a great website, and it shows all the doulas who are working. It gives all of information as far as what the experiences these doulas have, what kind of births they are specializing in, gives them a little profile or a little write-up about their personality. And what we suggest is that if you are interested in doulas, to interview 2 or 3 doulas, because this is all about connection. These people are going to be here at the most vulnerable time of your life, and you have to be able to be comfortable with these people in a very, like I say, a vulnerable state that you could be in. So you could be crying. We may be watching you naked. We may be seeing you on the toilet. We may be, watching you push a baby out. So you got to be sure that this individual that you choose is sitting comfortable with you. So it's not a bad idea to have we call them meet and greets. You call up 2 or 3 doulas that interest you. Have a very non-obligation meeting. It's about a half an hour usually. And ask them all sorts of questions. How long have they been working? Why did they choose to be a doula? How many births have they had? And it's usually a vibe, quite honestly, that you get from these people. So don't let I only want an experienced doula, because you may not jive with an experienced doula, but you may jive really, really well with a person who's only been doing it 2 or 3 years. So it's all about connection, it's all about personality, and it's all about who you feel comfortable with. I do want to talk a little bit about, before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about how the role of doulas have changed in regards to COVID-19. It's really hard to doula right now because of the social distancing. Many doulas right now, what we're doing is we're doing our prenatal visits on Skype or Zoom or FaceTime. Some of us are going into your homes, but that is a case-by-case situation, and there is a lot of discussion that needs to be done before that happens. Social distancing definitely has to be adhered even in the home. Some doulas, if they are going to your home, are masked or gloved. And again, there's nothing that is there's nothing out there that is that is standard about what doulas should do in regard to COVID-19. But every doula has their own comfort level. I'll say that. Everybody has their own comfort level. I know that right now VGH is restricting doulas from going into the hospital with you. So they are only adopting a one partner per birthing person policy. So that is going to be either your partner or your sister or your mother or a doula, but it only has to be one. And that is the only person that's going to be in that hospital. So even when you move to Mother Babe, if you choose me to be your doula, I get a bracelet, but that means that your partner can't go into Mom and Babe either. So that's a decision that weighs pretty heavily on a lot of families. So we can support you as much as we can in early labor. And again, there are some doulas that are not going to feel comfortable being in your home, but they can support you virtually, either through Zoom or Skype. And what we'll do is we will direct to the partners sometimes what kind of massages are going to be helpful, all that sort of thing. Again, like I said, it's very, very personal, and it's really unfortunate because it's really hard to practice as a doula and then have social distancing. How can I be 6 feet away from you and not be able to give you a massage, squeeze those hips, or even sometimes maybe even give you a hug if sometimes the intensity of the contractions is making you quite emotional. So there are some doulas that are going into the home in early labor, but as your labor progresses, especially if you are choosing to have a hospital birth, as your labor progresses and you head to the hospital, unfortunately, the doulas will not be able to go into the hospital with you. This is the information that we're getting right now. There are some doulas that will actually accompany you, or maybe even drive behind you till you get to the hospital, and then basically walk you to the main entrance, and then we'll have to let you go upstairs, it breaks a lot of doulas' hearts, believe me, because usually when it's time to get to the hospital, that's usually a time where you need to support the most. But we're going to do our utmost in helping to sometimes even really put a lot of confidence in that partner and show them how to support you physically as well as emotionally. And a lot of those kinds of discussions can be done well before you get into the labor. As far as postpartum visits are concerned, that is going to be an issue that you're going to have to talk with your individual doula again, because most of our postpartum visits are either at the hospital or at your home. So again, a lot of the doulas out there now are actually doing postpartum visits via Skype or FaceTime or Zoom. So again, it takes away a little bit of the emotional part of being a doula, but it's still working. It's still working, and I know that there's a lot of clients who have had babies right now, and this was their experience with their doula, and most are still saying that it was quite satisfying. To be honest, there are some people that are not hiring doulas or have dropped doulas contracts because the doulas cannot accompany them to the hospital. So that is going to be something that's it's going to be very challenging to be it's very challenging to be a doula right now. That is for sure. As far as childbirth education is concerned, because of social distancing, they're not allowing us to have a bunch of people sitting at the roundhouse or Mothering Touch. So right now, all of the prenatal or the childbirth classes that we are offering are done by Zoom. So I've got an April roundhouse class right now. I teach one weekend a month at the Roundhouse. And it's a Saturday and a Sunday. And we teach childbirth preparation from 9 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. But now what we're doing is I've got my first April class of 7 couples, and we're going to do a class on Zoom. And my May class is probably going to be the same thing too. Okay, so if you're interested in a course, please still register with the Roundhouse class. You can register through the Roundhouse class through my Vita website, www.vitadoulas.ca, and sign up for a class. We are not going to leave you in the lurch. We are still going to offer evidence-based, fun, practical, and solid information that's going to help you be a lot more confident in regards to the birth process and taking care of that new babe. Okay, we're not going to leave you alone. We're going to work it out somehow. And that even goes for breastfeeding consults. Most breastfeeding consults will be done on the phone. And the thing about breastfeeding consults is, or it won't be on the phone, but it will be through FaceTime or Zoom, because it is kind of a visual thing. We need to see what that baby's doing at the breast. So that is really how most doulas have been affected by COVID-19. I'm hoping it's not going to be very long, but this is what we've got, and we're working within the parameters that we can, and we're trying to give you guys the most support that you can in this time of need, and hopefully reduce your anxiety and your stress. And just know that we're out there for you. The practice may look a little bit different, but we're out there for you. And let's not forget, there's a baby coming. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. And it's going to be wonderful. And boy, what a story you've got to tell that baby. So on behalf of myself, Roundhouse Midwives, Vita Doulas, and myself, Jay Duncan, we wish you a very, very happy and powerful and positive birth. Thank you so much.